Howdy, soldiers. It is a delightfully hot, sunny day outside, so please excuse the fan that you can hear in the background, but, like, I'm a sweaty mess. However, my eyebrows haven't melted off, and my hair still looks pretty good, so we're gonna film today. I'm also enjoying a delightful drink of blackberry bubbly water, and lavender syrup that I made because I've just been on this, like, cottagecore kick. Lavender called to me, so I've just been dumping lavender syrup in, like, everything I'm making lately, including this, which definitely does not have gin in it. I filmed 2 book freako tags before, one where I was drinking caffeine and one where I was drinking alcohol, and it's too late in the evening for me to start drinking caffeine, so put those two and two things together and you get what's in my cup. I've also decided to sit down here instead of doing it in front of my bookshelves because I made the mistake of trying to break in new shoes yesterday while walking, like, all over downtown Vancouver, and my feet hurt, so I'm gonna sit down for this one. I started seeing people do mid-year book freako tags in June, and I was like, whoa, 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 slow your roll. You know, you start at the beginning of June, all of June hasn't happened yet. That's only 5 months. And I have an English degree, but I managed to do that math. I gotta slow down. I'm halfway through my drink and we haven't even started the intro yet. Oh dear. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in while we talk about my mid-year book freakout tag. Number 1 on this tag is to talk about the best book that you've read in 2022. And I am going to cheat already, because I want to talk about 2. Ooh, I'm already cheating. What are you gonna do about it? This is where our enemies to lovers plotline starts. The first of these 2 is the one I just mentioned in my June wrap-up, and that is Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid. This is a gothic retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale The Juniper Tree that centers around Marlin Chin, a young witch, and her 2 sisters who are held by their tyrannical and xenophobic father in a crumbling Victorian mansion in a city that is constantly urbanizing. Old world magic and industrialization collide when she sneaks out to go to the ballet and starts to fall in love with the new male principal dancer. This is Deathless meets House of Hollow. It is dark and creepy and macabre, and it is full of tension and body horror and gross magic and monsters. Marla Chin is a very interesting main character because she's a little bit aware that she's in a story. Not that it breaks the 4th wall, but the way that she looks at patterns and consequences and omens really adds to the atmosphere of the story because you as a reader and the protagonist can connect over knowing something bad is going to happen based on the rules of fairy tale. There's a lot of trigger warnings to look up for this one. It is not just a happy, fun book that you can pick up and take to the beach. It is dark, it is macabre, it is gross, and I loved it. I'm just realizing now that the other book I want to talk about, I also just talked about in June, and like, hey, June was a great reading month. I'm not going to apologize for being repetitive. I want to talk about A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by favs Meadows. This is a 5 out of 5 star gay political fantasy novel that burrowed its way into my heart, and I don't think it's going to leave anytime soon. Minor noble Vel has been promised in marriage to the princess of an opposing kingdom, but when it comes out that Vel is gay, the kingdom just says, oh, that's fine, and marries him off to the prince instead. So now Kay and Vel are forced into this political marriage that neither of them really wanted, and it's starting to cause a political uprising of people in both of their societies that don't want this marriage to go through. But the way that both of their societies thinks about queerness is very different. Kay has grown up in a very open and accepting country where, like, anything goes and you can be any gender and be with any other person, whereas Vel has grown up in a very strict heteronormative society where gayness is completely shunned and looked down upon. So Vel is trying to learn more of the language and the customs while also adjusting to the way that the society is so much more open than he has had to be in the past. And the love and acceptance of trust between Vel and Kay as they grow to know one another and start to learn how to act around one another is just, it's so sweet and wonderful. I'm gonna say it again here, this might sound cute, but it is not an easy book to read. There are major trigger warnings in here for things like PTSD, self-harm, homophobia, but the way that favs Meadows wrote about those difficult topics is what made me love this book even more and definitely respect the way that they write. So number 2 on this list is a little bit tricky because it is what is the best sequel that you have read this year. And if you can hear all those thumps, those are all the sequels that I've bought and not read. Oh yeah. This is bad. Hi, my name is Rachel. I love buying sequels and then not reading any of them. So this year I have only read 2 sequels, which is actually, honestly, only because I forced myself to read a sequel last week. Oh wait, no, I've read 3 sequels. I've read 3 sequels. Well, there's like standalones, but they're in the same unit. It'll be at a later question, we'll see. One of the sequels I had the most fun with was Through Illusions and Deceit by Stacey Jones and Harper Wilde, the first which being Within Obsession and Lies. Is that correct? Yes, it is! I love remembering things. I got this on a whim on Kindle Unlimited, thinking I was gonna have a fun one-night stand, and then completely fell in love with this poly foursome of fearsome fae. Our main character, Arwen, is a girl with powers that she can't control, and she doesn't know where they come from. And then 3 sexy men with the voices of phone sex operators who bring her into their world, and it turns out that she's a fae, wow! And then eventually they all have sex with each other and like other stuff happens, I think. But for real though, I really enjoyed this plotline, I really enjoyed this series. I like the hierarchies that are established within the fae, and I was skeptical of the sexy times. Was there gonna be consent like anywhere in this book? Yes, there is! Oh my god! As well as some like really emotionally charged, like well thought through encounters, let me say. I will warn all y'all. Turns into a real bad dragon situation. Mom, I really hope you still haven't Googled that. And the third one, I think, comes out this fall. So the day that it drops, I'm definitely downloading it. Number 3 is a new release that you bought but haven't read yet. And I lucked out, or, you know, the bookish gods smiled down upon me, and I found a copy of A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair in a book warehouse on Main Street. Even the cashier was like, oh my god, we have that? And I was like, yes, what do you know? I know her. That's my friend on TikTok. Also, the cashier said that they really enjoyed this book, and that was great. And they were also like really cute. But I was too afraid to ask if they wanted my number because I used to work at retail, and you know how it's just, don't approach people that work in retail asking for your phone number. We're not flirting with you. We're literally doing our job. That's extra emotional labor that we're not getting paid for. But I thought they were really cute. So like, if you know them, or you're that, hey, you want to, or my email's down below, let me know. I haven't gone on a date in a really long time. Okay, if you don't know the excitement around this book, there was a large anonymous campaign when this first was being published, and there was a list of clues within the book as to who the author was, and surprise, it was Melissa Blair all along! This is a new adult fantasy novel that incorporates aspects of indigenous culture and mythology. Surrounding our main character, Kira, who is a assassin and spy for the king, but then when a mysterious figure starts making moves against the crown, she is sent out to find out and assassinate this rival. But then, of course, once we're tracking people down, we find out, oh man, the government's been lying to us, and who am I really? And wow, Fairyland's nothing like I thought it was gonna be. You know, I'm a sucker for a girl with a sword, and I'm always looking for good new adults, and I love any kind of fairy-related novel, so I think this is gonna be great. Number 4 is what is your most anticipated read for the second half of 2022? Babel by R.F. Kuang, duh. Truly, I don't even know what this book is about. I just know that R.F. Kuang is a genius, and she's spoken at Harvard a whole bunch, and this is dark academia, and like everybody that I frickin' know on TikTok already somehow has an arc of this, and I'm not jealous at all. Babel by R.F. Kuang. Synopsis. This is the kind of hard-hitting research we do here on AModelWho'sRead's channel. Got an orphan was brought to London by a mysterious professor. He trains for years in a bunch of languages, hoping that he will enroll in Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation. I can read. Also about student revolutions and colonial resistance. Doesn't that just sound delightful? Shadowy organizations and wars for opium make this probably the most perfect dark academia book that I could possibly think of or hope for, and if this isn't good, my therapist will be hearing about it. Number 5 is, unfortunately, your biggest disappointment of the year, and I also spoke with this in my June wrap-up video, so just go watch that video, honestly. What are you doing here? I was beyond excited for Wrath Goddess Sing by Maya Dean, which was pitched to me as the myth of Achilles and Patroclus, except Achilles was a trans woman, and we're fighting the Trojan War over a goddess who is masquerading as Helen of Troy. There's been some stuff about this book on the internet, so you can go and look up the problematic aspects of it. Mostly it had to do with the fact there was a lot of racism and slavery and tokenization and exoticism of other cultures. The Roman Empire was very large. It encompassed most of Europe and like some of Africa, some of the Middle East, so there were multiple cultures within the empire. The Roman Empire did have slaves. It was not just slaves of color, it was slaves from all places. And you could also say that, you know, the idea that like no one traveled as much as people do now. So of course you're going to look at new cultures in a very different way back then than you would have today. But at the same time, I'm like, this was not necessary to have those things. You know, you can only use the term historical accuracy so far, and like, There's literally goddesses hatching out of golden eggs. Like, this is not historically accurate. Why do we have to have those things? So, it had me in the first half, but I definitely did not like the second. Number 6, actually what even is number 6? Number 6 is your biggest surprise, and I'm just as surprised as you are. I loved Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert. This is a third in her Dark Olympus series and focuses on Achilles, Patroclus, and Helen in this amazing can't be beat power throuple during a competition to see who is going to gain the title of the next Ares. In this world, the gods are not gods, but they are positions of power, and everyone in this book has their own reason for entering the competition to want to become the next Ares. But of course, our passions for one another can't be tamed, and, you know, they all come together in an explosive book. Like I always say, every love triangle can be solved with either a duel or a threesome, and I really enjoyed how we get this poly power throuple developing throughout the book, and how Achilles and Patroclus are like well established as a couple and they trust each other, and then having Helen come in and how her dynamic works with both of them, and then how they still connect with one another. That's just like so well done. I really, really enjoyed this book. Number 7 is to talk about your new favorite author, and hands down, I had to mention this book somewhere in here because it gave me such a reaction. It blew me away. This is her debut novel. Like, she destroyed the bar. There is no bar left anymore after reading Blood Scion by Deborah Fale. This is a brutal YA military fantasy novel that centers around Yoruban and Nigerian folklore, centering around our main character Sloane, who has a power to tap in to one of the gods' power, and so she can start fires. But when she is conscripted into the military, she is put on a unit that is responsible for tracking down people like her. This was bloody enough to rival a Saba Tahir novel. You could wring this out like a towel. It is intense. Like, a lot of stuff is on fire. I felt like I had a full body workout after just reading this book. She uses some very beautiful and unique world building because this is set in a society that has been colonized, and we see the colonizers, we see their culture, but we also see the way that some of the old gods refuse to go away. So, like, there are these floating statues that have been imbued with the power of the gods. They're just, like, around the city, and the colonizers cannot bring them down. So cool. This book is angry. It is full of rage and desperation and passion. Like, after reading this book, I was like, I need a sword! I need a sword right now! If you want tales of monstrous girls, this is a phenomenal debut, and I cannot wait for the sequel that I do promise to actually read right away. Number 8 is your latest fictional crush. And, like, I don't really get crushes on book characters very often because I'm like, you know, they're not real, so you can totally— it's Delilah Green. It's Delilah from Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This is one of my top 5 favorite books I've read this year, and maybe in my top 10 favorite books of all time. This is a phenomenal queer sapphic romance between Delilah, who goes back to her small town to participate in her stepsister's wedding, and when she's there she meets Claire, and the two of them like start to have a little relationship, but then also there's family drama because like we don't even really like the groom that her sister's marrying, and like what's gonna happen then? It is tough and funny and heartwarming and talks all about family and the way that we view relationships with different people. And Delilah is a delight. She's snarky and funny and passionate and stubborn as hell, and if she turned her charms on me, I don't know if I'd be able to resist. Okay, I just had to change my lighting setup a little bit because there was some old guys from across the street just looking in on me, which is weird, you know? Not that some like late 20s girl sitting around in her apartment speaking to herself is not weird, but, you know, context. Number 9 is to talk about your new favorite character, and hands down, I absolutely love Karina from Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. First of all, can I say, Nisha Sharma and I follow each other on TikTok. She is a delight. I love her. She's so warm and funny and has great takes on stuff and seems like such an interesting lady. This is a retelling of Taming of the Shrew, where Karina and Prem enter into a fake engagement so that both of them can benefit from their families wanting them to be engaged. Dr. Deal is a show where Prem talks about health-related things, and he is very dead set on that love does not exist. And when the two of them are thrown together, sparks fly regardless. Karina, with her attitude and drive and sweater vests, is one of my favorite characters hands down this year. She was so fun to read, she was so fun to be in the head of, and if there was an overthinking award, I think I would have a new match in Karina, as the two of us duked it out to see who gets the grand supreme title. I would love to be friends with such a funny, smart, D&D loving lady who also likes cars and like won't put up with men's shit. Hell yeah, girl, you go. Nisha, did we just become best friends? Number 10 is to talk about a book that made you cry, and Looking back on my list, I haven't cried at a single book this year. I think that's just because I'm crying all the time, so like a book isn't really gonna get me going anymore. Look, I've had a rough 2022, okay? We're just starting to turn it around. Okay, that's not entirely true, but I like to do these videos with books of the year. I try and do it with newer or more current books. However, the only book that made me cry this year is one that came out a couple years ago, so we're including it. You know, that's fine. There are no rules. You can't tell me what to do. I'm an adult. And you're not my real dad. The only book that made me sob cry this year has been One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Yes, I know. It took me this long to read it, but you know what? I did, and I loved it, and yes, I did cry. This is a sapphic new adult contemporary time travel novel about August, a 23-year-old college student who moves to New York City, where she meets Jane, who is a time traveler stuck outside of time on the Q train. As August is experiencing New York City and trying to find herself, she decides to take on Jane's problem and just trying to find a way to send her back, but then it's, oh, do we even want to send her back? And do we like this timeline more? And oh hey, maybe we're falling in love. And honestly, the most unrealistic thing about that is you can still think sexy thoughts on public transit. And I thought this book was lovely. It really does explore new adulthood. Plus there's a great look into the contemporary and past queer communities of New York City. It's just wonderful and queer and heartwarming. And yes, I did sob uncontrollably at the end, but in a good way, I promise. On the other end of the spectrum, number 11 is to talk about a book that made you happy. And one of my favorite books that I read in January was Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This is about Delilah and London, two contestants on a reality TV show about cooking. So it's like Top Knife, Top Chef, Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen on Fire, something like that, where there are two chefs competing for a grand prize, but also slowly falling in love. London is non-binary, which is a plot thread of the book, but not the main focus. And Dahlia has just come out of a perfect marriage, realizing that she is queer and didn't like the prescribed life that she was going to be getting under heteronormativity. And like, who does these days? What's it done for me? And I really appreciated this exploring how people can want different types of lives and how you can try something out for a while and it doesn't work for you, so you can switch and do something else, and it's not the end of the world to decide that you want something completely different. And the two of them together have such good chemistry. And like, I don't watch TV, but if they were on it, I would tune in. Number 12 is gonna be very short, because it is your favorite book to movie adaptation this year. And I haven't watched a single one. Not Heartstopper, not The Wheel of Time, not The Summer I Turned Pretty, not any of the Bridgerton franchises. Go girl, give us nothing. I'm still waiting for the second season of Shadow and Bone to drop though. I don't know if that's gonna be this year, but if it is, I'm just gonna de facto go with that as my answer. Number 13 is your favorite review that you've left this year, and full disclosure, I completely have just given up on my book blog. Like, it doesn't bring me joy anymore. I don't have time for it. So I guess my reviews are focused on YouTube or on Instagram. And this review is so exclusive, it doesn't even exist yet. I recently did a post for Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. And can I just say, this is the photo that I put up. My nails a week and a half later are still have paint in them. And I'm just like, I swear my hands are clean. This was a water-activated paint too. What the hell, Mayron? I demand compensation. This book is a queer biblical dystopian horror novel that is unlike anything I have ever read. I don't want to say too much because I do want to leave my full review at the end of the month. But the review that I gave for this is that if you have a plague phobia, if you have religious trauma, and if you don't like body horror, absolutely do not pick this up. But I'm triple vax, an atheist, and don't mind reading about people puking up liquefied internal organs, so I thought it was great. Oh god, gross. Last but not least, number 14 is to talk about the most beautiful book that you bought this year, and hands down, I'm so excited I can show you this stunning, splendid, marvelous, what's another thesaurus word? Wonderful, smashing, dazzling book, which was A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. So let's give a round of applause for jacket illustration by Sija Hong and jacket design by Rich Diaz and Kathleen Breitenfeld. Now that is what I call a power throuple. They're getting shit done. Look at this. This is phenomenal. I could wallpaper my house in this. Doesn't hurt, this is also a fantastic magical competition book that is centered around tea making. Our main character Ning travels to the capital to enter a competition of Sennongxi, which I probably said wrong, I'm very sorry. There's truly like 17 pronunciations of this online, and I hope I picked the right one. Whoever wins the competition of tea mastery will win a favor from the princess, and Ning is hoping to take that favor and save her dying sister. Even though we don't travel that many places in this book, the world building and the set design like, it's like the best, like the setting, I don't know. Places that we are so rich and detailed, especially when it comes to food and tea, and I love seeing the different techniques of steeping, the different flavors and the different smells and the way that Ning can distinguish them all. And if both Joan-hee and Shirin Chae-Chao has blurbed this as being good book, you know it's gotta be good. And that is that on that. Thank you all for joining me tonight while we went through the mid-year book freakout tag for July 2022. Vancouver weather is having an identity crisis because it does not know what it wants to be. Yesterday was cloudy and humid as hell. Today it is like clear and 30 degrees and so freaking hot, even though now it's like almost 9 p.m. And like last week, I had to bust out my sweaters that I packed away in my winter drawer. But I guess it's gonna be sunny for the next week, so like, I gotta stop by a drugstore and buy a new bottle of sunscreen. I was scrolling on Goodreads at like 11 p.m. the other day, as one does, and I noticed that there was only like one book that I was excited for in July, which, I mean, that sounds bad, but actually, that's great, because now I have a free month to like catch up on stuff, and I don't have to worry about like being up to date on things, because I'm not interested in them. And I feel so free! July's gonna be a month of sequels, for sure. I need to catch up on all these series that I start and then don't finish. And that's probably psychological at some point, but like, we don't have time to unpack all that right now. I would do a longer outro, but I am dying to open up my window right now, and I think I have to go soak my feet again because I'm in pain. Breaking in leather sandals by walking 30,000 steps in one day, not a good plan. You know where to click to like the video, you know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!